There it goes, salad's boiling.
All of the noodles?
Half.
Okay. But this is too much water. I put in more than half.
It's gonna be a lot. Get a spoon.
Shut them damn kids up.
I think that it's on. It's too bright.
Is there a way you can do this? Because it'll probably be like long done. Could you just like go and turn it off and the noodles get ready?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. Thank you, Mom. I love.
Love you so.
I'm guessing I should go up now so I'm distracted.
Yeah, you should. You should go up.
All right. Oh, what?
Maybe it needs to be just a little hot. That's how we'll do it.
Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Denise, how are you?
Well, thanks for the invite.
Oh, yeah, I'm so happy you came.
Yeah.
How's it going at the free clinic?
You know, everything is, wow, everything's happening fast.
Well, tell, what does that mean?
Well, we are growing and growing and growing. And well, now I'm working at both the women's residence and the men's residence. And soon I'm sure I'm going to spread my wings and fly in other directions.
Well, that's what is exactly does that mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, the new director has plans for me, so you know.
Oh, come on. What is that?
You're gonna have to wait like I gotta wait. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, the new director had plans for me too. So there you go.
Dr. Latoya?
No, Jen Yeagley.
Oh, she's the CEO.
Oh, you mean the new director of residential? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know you all had a new director of residential.
Yeah, fabulous, fabulous lady.
Okay, cool.
She's making
There.
things happen.
Now, I see on Facebook you're still doing a lot of cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm cooking at the woman's residence 3 days a week.
3 days a week. Okay, I was wondering how much you were doing.
And I am I'm the weekend advocate at the men's residence. So I'm there on the weekend, not cooking, just, monitoring.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of change at the health center.
yes.
I know it seems like there's a lot of folks are not there anymore.
Yeah, and so they need a bigger space as well, because from what I understand, there's not enough space to take care of the clientele.
Is that a real fire behind you?
That is.
That is nice. It looks just like my fireplace. That's really pretty. How often do you make a fire?
Recently, yesterday, I think 3 days in a row, it's during the chilly weather.
Yeah. What is your hookup for firewood?
So I actually start with the pieces of wood that are Dura wood, Dura flame.
Mhm.
And then I have some logs in the back.
Okay.
So I just put that on top and it'll burn. That'll burn till tonight. Yeah, actually.
Hi. Hi, Brenda. Oh, hey, Stephanie. That's
Okay, I'm here.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Good. How are
Good
you?
to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming. This is something I've been wanting to do forever. And I got a grant. I'll tell you, I got a grant from the American Heart Association to
Wow.
do free nutrition and cooking classes. And so that's what this
Oh,
is.
so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm being compensated, right? And because I have bills to pay.
Wow.
So, but it's free for you. And that's the whole idea behind what their goal is, that they got a corporate grant from Aramark that said, we want you to go find people in the community to go teach cooking and nutrition for heart health. And so they have these little mini grants that they give out to people, and I got one. And so that's why I'm doing this.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for being proactive and getting all this information for us.
What time? It's getting to be time. And over here, I'm cooking macaroni for my son. That's not a good thing. I'm stirring the pot over here.
But
of
it's all
macaroni.
relative, you know.
I know he wants me to make him macaroni and cheese. He's not feeling well, so he
Aw.
wants me to make him
Aw.
macaroni and cheese. So I'm making him macaroni and cheese when we're done.
Ah,
I wouldn't say
still a
I
little
wouldn't.
comfort food.
It's a little comfort food. Yeah, it's a little comfort food. So.
Got it.
So now, did you learn about this from Facebook or from the email or from another source?
I think the
I-
email.
I was trying to remember where I heard about it and I couldn't remember whether it was LinkedIn or I don't remember.
Okay.
But I'm happy to share. I meant to reach out with you earlier to see if you wanted me like to post it on LinkedIn or anywhere else, like on Nextdoor, but I forgot to ask, so.
No, that's okay. And I'm doing another one a week from today right at this time. And please feel free to share that one. Because it's my goal is numbers. Like what did they say? Butts in the seats. That's my goal. Butts in the seats. And then someone said, what's the criteria? I said, you have a pulse. If you have a pulse, you can come. That's the criteria. That's the criteria.
Well, my cat is here attending as well. I don't know if he counts.
I wish I could count your cat.
His head in here in a minute. Because nothing is just about me. It's all about him. Are you gonna say hello?
Is he the one that is at your office or does he come back and forth with you?
No, I have 2 that live at home and 2 that live at the office. So I'm a crazy 4-cat lady. So
Let's
say
see.
hello?
What time is it? Oh, it is 6:30. So we should start. I want to start on time.
all right.
For the people who, hi Joey. Joey Moore is connecting. Okay, so I'm gonna start and then people can jump on. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Wendy Wesley, dietitian, nutritionist. My company is there's the cat. My company is Wendy Wesley Nutrition. Like I said, I got a grant from the American Heart Association to do nutrition and cooking education tonight. I'm going to make honey seared Brussels sprouts. And then I also have a slide presentation. It's Nutrition 101 for heart health. And so my focus will be on carbohydrates tonight and fiber and added sugar and all of that kind of stuff. That'll be the focus with the slide presentation. So and what the Heart Association really wants is they want to know what kind of questions you have. So when they come to me and they say they want feedback, they want to know what questions you might have as far as heart health. So that's my point in telling you that is to not be shy about questions that you might have about fiber, sugar, heart health, salt, fat, anything. I mean, really any kind of question that has to do with nutrition, don't hold back. Go ahead and ask, okay? I'm going to start with the recipe. I have my trusty cast iron pan, and I'd like to do these Brussels sprouts in a cast iron pan because the beautiful thing about cast iron, couple things, the heat distributes evenly. So the heat will be the same here as it is right here in the middle of the pan once I get it going, which means that all of my Brussels sprouts will all cook at the same time. The other nice thing about cast iron is it actually imparts iron from the pan into the food, believe it or not. So if you have anemia or low red blood cell count or anemia, low iron, you can actually get more iron into your food, into your diet by cooking in a cast iron pan because the iron ions, say that fast 10 times, iron ions will actually leach from the pan into the food. And this works especially well when you're cooking scrambled eggs because of the water content. So the iron will leach into the eggs and give you a bigger dose of iron. So keeping cast iron is, it takes a little bit of work to get the knack of it. The one thing I can tell you about cast iron, you probably already know this, is you don't ever use soap on it, ever. Because what I have here is essentially a non-stick coating. This is the original non-stick cookware. This is what people in pioneer days used for non-stick, but you have to get it super hot. And if you get it super hot, your food will not stick. Now, if you put cold food in a cold pan, guess what? It sticks. But if you put coldish or room temperature food in a hot pan, it won't stick, especially if you have a good black. And you see how black my coating is. I've been working on this pan for about 25 years. When it's time to season it, I put a little bit of oil in it and I go set it outside in front of my house on the sidewalk in the middle of the summer. The heat in Florida is so dang hot that the heat from underneath, from the sidewalk, will bake the oil into the surface, and then the heat from the sun coming down will bake the oil into the surface. And seasoning creates this nonstick surface. So in the summertime in Florida is when I season my nonstick pans. Any questions about nonstick cooking, or excuse me, cast iron cooking? I better get my, this is a hot plate. I better get my hot plate going so I can cook these. Who uses cast iron? Anybody use cast iron? You do, Debbie?
Yes, well, we use it at our house. I use it a little bit, but my husband uses it a lot.
Okay. Yeah. What do you like about it?
I think he likes what you were just describing. I don't know that he knew about the iron. I'll have to tell him, but I don't know exactly what he likes about it, but he uses it quite a bit, actually. I think he likes, I don't usually eat meat. I tend to be vegetarian, but he likes to cook his meat in it. The way it cooks the way it browns like.
Yeah, it gets a nice good sear on a piece of meat. So you get this going super hot. You could put a piece of meat in here. I do a pork loin in here. So I put the pork loin in here and I get it seared on both sides, and then I finish it in the oven. That's the other nice thing about cast iron cooking, is that the whole thing can go in the oven. You wouldn't want to put a pan that had a plastic handle or a wooden handle in the oven. It may burn. But this is the other nice thing about cast iron, is the whole thing goes in the oven. So it goes from stove top to oven, because the whole thing is metal. You can do the same thing with stainless steel. So for instance, I have a pot rack up here. This is a stainless steel pan, same thing. This pan would go directly from stovetop to oven because the whole thing is metal. So that's where they call it, it's an oven safe pan, meaning it goes from stovetop to oven, no worries. But don't do that with plastic or wood, please. You'll melt it. So I'm just putting that back up there. So this is heating up, and I'm going to work on my my Brussels sprouts. But before I do that, I'm going to sharpen my knife. This is a steel. I try before I cut anything to run a knife, give it a couple of passes on the steel. And what this does is it hones the blade. I'm not really sharpening it. I'm just getting kind of a finer blade on it. The most dangerous thing in your kitchen is a dull knife, and the safest thing in your kitchen is a sharp knife. When you're using a dull knife, you're using a lot of downward pressure because your knife is not sharp, and that's when you slip and make a mistake, and that's when you cut yourself. But if you're using a sharp knife, you shouldn't have to use a lot of downward pressure because you have a nice blade. You have a nice sharp blade, and you don't have to use a lot of downward pressure. Couple of times every month, I will pull out this is my sharpening stone. You can kind of see on one side, it's kind of like an emery board. One side is rough and the other side is smooth. And it's called a whetstone because you get it wet, you use water with it. And I will sharpen this is actually sharpening because I'm grinding down the blade. And then I'm putting a better edge on it. So I do this every, 2 or 3 months. I'll take out all my knives and I'll do this. But then before I cook, I keep this right by the stove where I keep the knives, and I just give it a couple of quick passes on the steel. Plus it makes for good show. Like your friends come over and you pull out your knives and you do, cooking is all about theater. It's all dinner and a show. It's all dinner and a show. That's all this is. So I'm putting this kind of a sharper edge on my knife to do these Brussels sprouts. Now, when you're cutting very, very high fiber foods like these Brussels sprouts, you will dull your knife. So if you're going to eat a lot of plants, if you're going to eat a lot of food that has a lot of fiber, you have to have sharp knives. It'll dull it very, very quickly. So the key to cutting these Brussels sprouts is you want to, and I'm going to show you how I cut them. You want to have as much surface area as possible because you want as much of the Brussels sprout to burn or brown. I call it, I really am going to kind of burn these. That's the truth, right? And it's called, I'm going to use butter, and it's called the Maillard reaction. And what I'm doing is I'm burning the proteins in the butter, and it's going to turn these Brussels sprouts nice and brown and give them a great flavor. Okay. So the way I want to cut them is I want as much surface area as possible because I want a lot of brown on these suckers. And if I cut them kind of in slivers, I wouldn't get that flat surface area for burning, basically. So a Brussels sprout is just like a little cabbage. It's kind of, I always look at them and I always think of Little Shop of Horrors, you know, like feed me, Seymour, right? So they're just the cutest little things you ever saw. They're like just little cabbages. So this is the woody end. I'm going to cut off the woody end. And when I teach cooking, I try and teach people to make sure that they can get a flat surface on whatever they're cutting. So I'm going to put this flat surface down on the cutting board, and it gives me a steady surface to work with my knife. And I always say to people, make sure you cut flat. If you're cutting an onion, if you're cutting an apple, anything, try and get a flat surface so you have a steady surface to cut on. You'll feel safer and you'll work faster. And that's what this is all about. You have to work fast in the kitchen. A lot of people find cooking to be this chore, and I'm always trying to find ways for people to work faster in the kitchen so that they have more joy. Because a lot of, you've been at work all day, and maybe the last thing you want to do is come home and watch me on a cooking video, right? But y'all are very sweet. But maybe the last thing you want to come home and do is cook. But if you can cook fast and it's not so much a chore and you feel like you've got good command of what you're doing, then it's joyful. And that's what I'm always trying to figure out. How do I give more people joy in the kitchen? How to create more joy in the kitchen? So I've got this flat surface. I'm going to put it down. Can you see what I'm doing? Can you just kind of see what I'm doing? Let me do this. Okay. So I've got this flat surface, and these little leaves can come off. They can go in the pan too. I am going to cut them so that I can get this nice big surface for burning, okay? And then flip it and then give it one more. Now this last cut gets a little precarious. You can take it slow. This is a little one. Again, cutting off the woody stem, turning it flat, giving it a couple of cuts so that I have lots and lots of burn area. Okay, a couple more. Now this recipe is one of my favorites. One of the reasons I like it so much is because you can make it, for instance, for a party or for company or for a meal, and you don't have to serve it super hot. It serves up really nicely at room temperature. So you can put it in a serving dish and put it on the table and you're done. So I made this once for a Christmas party, and it was served at room temperature and they were great. So it's 4 ingredients. It's butter. I'm going to use about a tablespoon of butter in my cast iron. It's getting good and hot. It is the Brussels sprouts right here. It's the Brussels sprouts. It's a little bit of salt, or maybe it's not even a lot of salt because I'm using a salted butter. I usually just use a salted butter. And then I'm going to finish with a little bit of honey. Okay. So it's 4 ingredients: Brussels sprouts, salt, butter, and honey. That's it. And it's a pretty simple thing. It's a great way to introduce kids to vegetables because it's sweet. And so if you can introduce a vegetable, like a new vegetable, to a kid, and it has just a little bit of sugar, it has a little bit of sweet, you might have a better chance of introducing it to them. When I was a kid, my mom boiled Brussels sprouts. I can turn off this macaroni. It's going to be overdone. My mom boiled Brussels sprouts, made the whole house stink to high heaven. They tasted awful. And what happens is when you cook, when you boil these, this is a cruciferous vegetable. It's in the same family as broccoli, as cabbage, as cauliflower. When you boil cruciferous vegetables, what they release is sulfur. And that's that terrible smell. It smells like well water because well water is full of sulfur. That the Brussels sprouts are full of sulfur. So when you boil them, they release sulfur. But something interesting happens when you bake them, roast them, or sear them, like I'm going to do here. They don't seem to release that same awful odor. I don't know why that is. I don't know why through the boiling process, it releases all of those sulfur compounds. So I grew up absolutely hating Brussels sprouts, and now I'm quite a fan because I have discovered searing and roasting. And I think that Brussels sprouts are kind of having a moment, or maybe their moment is gone. I wonder what the next hot vegetable is going to be, but Brussels sprouts have been definitely enjoying a moment. In fact, I was out to dinner last night for Valentine's Day, and on the menu at this very fancy Italian restaurant downtown was honey seared Brussels sprouts. And they were very, very good. So I thought, oh, as you know, we're eating them. I'm thinking, I'm going to make these tomorrow night on Zoom. What's the big deal? But there you go. What's the big deal? Is that a comment? What does that say? Should my cast iron, okay, this is a question. Should my cast iron pan be heating now? Oh yeah, I think you should heat it up now. It does take a little bit of time to heat up a cast iron pan. Woo, this is getting hot. I better stop talking and start cooking. Let me get the butter in the pan. Like I said, I am just finishing up these sprouts. These look like to be enough. I'm going to do about a tablespoon of butter. Now, a tablespoon is about the volume of your thumb. So this bottom knuckle, the whole volume of your thumb, okay? It's not much. This might be just a tad bit more. Nobody saw me do that, so here we go. Okay. And it is going around and around. I don't know if you can hear that sizzle. That is pretty, pretty, pretty. I'm going to let it get hot and brown just a little bit. And then I'm going to lay these Brussels sprouts down flat in the pan, laying them flat in the pan so they can sear. And as Bobby Flay says, I stole this completely from Bobby Flay, don't fuss them, let the pan do the work. Don't move them around. Just put them in the pan and let the pan do the work. It's one of the best pieces of advice, cooking advice I'd ever heard, because it was always my tendency to fuss things, fuss and muss. And sometimes you just have to let it alone and let the pan get things moving. So I'm popping these in. Again, I cut them so I've got lots of nice surface area for lots of brown. Okay. Any questions? Is there anything in the chat? Just that one question from Sophie. Sophie is way, way, way out in Canada. West Canada, right, Sophie? Okay. Now there is a little bit of a smell. It's not like it's not the sulfur smell of my childhood. I can guarantee you that. It doesn't stink like my mom's Brussels sprouts. I remember sitting at the table. It was one of those moments where I think I sat at the table until 9 o'clock until I ate the Brussels sprouts. I hated them that much. Now I think they're fantastic. So the beautiful thing about Brussels sprouts, they're very, very high in vitamin A, very, very high in vitamin C. I don't like to use the term superfood, but if there were a superfood, Brussels sprouts would be definitely on that list of superfoods. I don't like the term superfood because it positions one food as better than the other. And the truth is that for our best nutrition, we should eat a wide variety of foods. So that's really where we have the best shot at overall nutrition, is when we eat a wide variety of foods. So dietitians really don't like the term superfoods because it positions one higher than the other, and all foods are really allowed. Well, maybe not Cheetos, but but in the vegetable and fruit world, we don't like to put one above the other. There's a lot of science behind the idea of eat the rainbow, right? So eating the rainbow means eating foods from many, many different colors. And that includes white. If you think about mushrooms and radishes and bananas, those are white foods, but they will bring a unique antioxidant to your body that a red food doesn't. And a red food will bring something unique to your body that a purple food doesn't. So you should eat a wide variety of foods. I'm going to give one of these a turn and see how it's looking. Okay, okay, good. This is a good looking burned, seared, however you want to call it, Brussels sprout. And if you can see, I don't know. Let's see. How are we doing? I don't know. That's not working. That light is not working. Anyway, can you see it? Anyway, it's getting nice and brown.
We can see it.
You can see it. Okay, good. This is the first time I've done Zoom in my kitchen when it's dark outside. So the lighting is, I've always done these during the daytime. So I'm trying to figure out the light. So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm starting to get a little bit of sear on my Brussels sprouts, I'm going to start giving them a turn. I'm going to start giving them a little bit of turn. Oh, these are looking very, very pretty. I'll hold the pan up to the camera. And then what the nice thing, because you're not fussing them while the pan is doing the work, you can be doing other things, whether that's making, you know, cooking a grain or tending to the meat if you eat meat or whatever it is. These also are good as leftovers. You can make them, you can make a large batch and you can keep them left over during the week. And cold, they go great on a salad. They go beautiful on a salad. So you could make a large batch of them in the evening and then you could save them for your lunch salad the next day. Let's see. So I'm just giving them a little bit of a turn. What are some of the other things you all do with Brussels sprouts? Do you roast them in the oven? I will show you one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, please.
So I actually roast them in the oven with some olive oil and some seasonings. And the olive oil, when you put it on a high roast, it sears them just like you're searing in the skillet. And it just makes them nice and caramelized. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know what we were thinking in the 70s and the 80s when we were boiling these things. I don't know why we didn't. Perhaps maybe in Italy they had it all figured out and they were roasting and toasting and baking. I don't know. But in America, we were boiling the living hell out of these things and it was awful. And so now I think we finally figured out how to eat Brussels sprouts. When I was working at St. Anthony's Hospital, one day I used to eat on our salad bar every day. And one day I just kind of I showed up and this is what was on the salad bar. And it tickled me to no end. Let's see, am I doing it right? No, I'm not doing it right. How did they do it? Maybe they did it this way. I've got it turned on its side. Anyway, they were shaved Brussels sprouts and they were so crunchy. And what they did was, it was almost like a coleslaw. They provided this incredible crunch on my salad, but they didn't taste funky, if you know what I mean. They didn't have that like Brussels sprouty taste. So this is what they had, but they chopped them up and then, you know, here's what I'm doing with my hands. And then they had this fantastic kind of slaw that is really like very, very crunchy. And I would just sprinkle it on top of the salad. And then I love the idea because it just added some crunch, but I didn't feel like I was eating Brussels sprouts. You know what I mean? It didn't taste gross. But I know the nutritional benefits of it. So I thought, I'm getting a big wallop of fiber. I'm getting a lot more vitamin C, vitamin A, and it's just a cool, like a sprinkle. I'm just sprinkling this all over my table, but it's a cool sprinkle on top of my salad. So that's another use for Brussels sprouts.
I shave them and turn them into a slaw with nuts and berries.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. I think
that it's really good.
You know, and you could turn this whole bag of Brussels sprouts like into a slaw. You could use it in place of cabbage. Sometimes I want to buy
with the shaving and the slaw.
What was that?
Ditto with the shaving, slaw, and like cranberries and stuff like that in the coleslaw. Really
It's
good.
really taste.
Very good, very good. You know, sometimes I want to buy a whole cabbage at the store and it's, you know, I don't need a whole cabbage. So if I can buy a bag of Brussels sprouts for $2.50 and cut it up like a slaw, I can have that. Also, when I make tacos, I love to put like a slaw on top of the tacos like they do like in California style tacos, you know, like a fish taco. This is a great topping for a taco. So instead of buying a big old cabbage, one time I bought a cabbage at Publix. I think it cost me $9. I almost had a heart attack. That's the last time I ever did that. So that's when I started buying. You can just buy the coleslaw shavings. You can just buy the coleslaw in the bag, or you can buy Brussels sprouts. and do this with them. So I think
That's really-
my Brussels sprouts are getting to the point where they're pretty close to done. I'm just going to add a little bit of salt, just a shaky shake of salt. And then let me get a plate for plating, a white plate. Sorry. Let me get a white plate for plating. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add about a tablespoon or two of honey. This is just plain old store brand honey, nothing fancy here. And I'm just going to add about a tablespoon. That's about 1 tablespoon. Maybe that's 1.5, 2 tablespoons. You hear that sizzling? That's the sugar burning. Turn them over in my pan. Oh, that smells so good. And it's so pretty. And then I'm going to plate them and show them to you. And I think last night in the restaurant, they finished with balsamic vinaigrette. I think that's how they finished them. You can also finish these with a little bit of honey, a little bit of lemon if you like. You can also do these with garlic if you like. And if you wanted to not do honey, if you wanted to do like something a bit more savory, if you wanted to do lemon and garlic, you can do that. But here they are, if you can see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're pretty. They're very, very shiny. I think that's from the honey. I wish you could taste them. They are a kind of a cool mixture of bitter and salty and sweet. They really are this kind of, oh, look, Sophie's making them way out in Canada and she's got a cast iron pan. I'm going to eat one. I absolutely love these. Oh, they're hot. Oh, hot, hot.
I tried messaging you. I didn't realize we could unmute, but I use mine with my egg scramble that you taught me for my breakfast or brunch.
Oh, you put them in the egg scramble.
Yeah, I cut
Oh,
up
wow.
onions and mushrooms and Brussels sprouts, and then at the end I put spinach and scrambled eggs in there, and oh my god, it's so good.
Do you
That's-
cook them? Do you cook them in advance?
No, at the same time, just like I cook them first, just like we did here, and then I
Yeah.
add like the onions I'd cook in there first and mushrooms and everything. But then some of the things like the scrambled eggs I put in the eggs last, and spinach as well, because then
Okay.
it shrivels right up. Yeah.
These will really bulk your eggs up because they are so
Yeah.
fibrous and bulky. They really will, and that's kind of the beautiful thing. She's talking
Really?
about an egg bake where you cook up a whole mess of vegetables and you put them in with your eggs and you bake it. And the nice thing is that you get this big dose of vegetables and fiber first thing in the morning that keeps you full for a long time. And it's just because these vegetables are so fibrous and bulky that you feel
I
like the darn thing is falling off your plate, right? Because that's the beautiful thing about fiber is when you're eating very, very high fiber foods, you are a volume eater. And so I work with a lot of people who come to me who call themselves volume eaters, but maybe in the past, the volume that they've consumed has been things like chips and candies and cakes and muffins and big fluffy bagels. And that's the volume that they're used to. And so what we do is we kind of shift them to eating very, very high fiber foods so that they still get that volume that they're craving, but they're lowering their cholesterol, they're consuming fewer calories, they're consuming more antioxidants, minerals, and vitamins because the volume of the food they're eating is coming in the form of fruits and vegetables. So that's it's kind of a mind trick because I do have a lot of clients who will say, I am a volume eater. I am used to eating large portions. How can you help me? And this is how we do it.
Well, if you look at my husband, like he'll eat like 6 scrambled eggs, whereas I'll eat 1 or 2 with all those vegetables, and I feel just as full and if anything less heavy, and it feels it's really good.
Now I found that as these mellow, as these cool, they get sweeter and they just get better the longer they sit. You were going to say something, Joey.
I just said that I had never thought of adding Brussels sprouts to breakfast. I do the spinach and I roast several times a week, broccoli and green beans, and that's added to meals and just different things so that I can keep getting veggies. And then we throw the spinach in. Never thought of putting Brussels and I'm going to have to go buy Brussels sprouts tomorrow. I'm
Another
so
thing, I'm always trying to figure out how do we get more vegetables into the third meal, and that third meal is often breakfast because we'll eat vegetables at lunch, we'll eat vegetables at dinner, but sometimes especially in America, we think of breakfast as dessert. And so we think of it as muffins and we think of it as, toast and jelly and pancakes and waffles. But we are one of the few cultures around the world that doesn't eat beans first thing in the morning for breakfast. There are people all over the world that eat beans, and we're just kind of have a roadblock or a mental block with that. Yeah, Joey.
I do. I will, in fact, I just got my Rancho Gordo order in today, so I'm so excited. But yeah, there's beans frequently at breakfast, but I want the rainbow showing up more at breakfast.
Okay. Yeah. And then back to beans, you'll find the rainbow in the beans, in the red beans, black beans, the tan of black-eyed peas.
But I'm terrible. I usually buy the white beans.
Like I was saying earlier, white is a color. Mushrooms, bananas, radishes. There's antioxidants. There's unique antioxidants in white that you won't find in black, that you won't find in green. So it's important to eat all the colors.
Cool.
So I need to take a quick picture of the screen so I can I need to prove to the American Heart Association that this happened. So smile. Okay, good. There. Now, I just had to prove to them that this happened. So any questions about I better turn this off. Any questions about the Brussels sprouts fiber use of the Brussels sprouts? Because what I have now is a brief presentation about fiber, sugar, and carbohydrates. That I'd like to share my screen if I could.
You can.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, this technology, I'm nervous as a kitten right now trying to do this.
Well, I've been here for 15 minutes without you hearing me or seeing me. I just watched it cook. But thank you, by the way, because I never got my Brussels the way I wanted them, and it's because I wasn't cutting them right.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you gotta cut them so you get a lot of surface area.
Yep.
Lots and lots of surface area. Okay, so
And
here
I
we
think
have
the pan made a big difference too.
the pan, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cast iron pan. I think
Has to be
it's because
cast
I hate cleaning it and it's heavy. So, but it made a big difference. It caramelized them a lot more.
It will. And like I was saying earlier, the other beautiful thing about cast iron is it's the same temperature in the middle as it is at the edge.
Yeah.
That's the other nice thing
Yeah.
about cast iron is that even cooking.
Especially if you're like gas.
Yeah, I have gas. Well,
Mhm.
my oven does.
So do you, Sophie. So do you. Especially if you eat these Brussels sprouts. That's the other thing. You eat a lot of high fiber foods. I don't know. There's a funny skit on Portlandia. It's a vegan restaurant, and there's a special area where you go past gas after you've had the meal. I mean, it's just you're just gonna fart if you eat a lot of high fiber vegetables. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. We're made to fart, so
Your
it's
body
okay.
There's a woman that was on NPR who was talking about, she's written a book about the fact that your poop stinks, not my poop, or something like that. But she's a doctor, and she's talking about the fact that, hey, if you're not having any smells, you should be worried about that. And it was just a really cool thing to listen to. I never thought about it, that that's the sign of a healthy gut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Even though I knew, but I didn't think about it.
All right, so this is my presentation. Please jump in and ask a question, please, or put it in the chat if you're a little on the shy side. So it's called Nutrition and Heart Disease 101. So if this is you, this presentation is definitely, can you see my screen? Yeah. So if this is you, might want to pay attention. Pop to Wilma, I'm healthy. Well, I prefer for people to get their minerals, vitamins, antioxidants from real food and from the plant kingdom, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, high fiber foods. I truly believe this is the absolute best way to get your minerals and vitamins is from real food. If your doctor has found a deficiency, then I think you should supplement that. But other than that, it's not the end of the world. You can take a multivitamin. It's okay. I don't know that you necessarily need it, but if the doctor has found a deficiency, definitely use that. But let's try and get our nutrition needs met from real good old fashioned food, and that comes from the plant kingdom. So if you're kind of in your kitchen, if you're nearby, if you would grab a food with a nutrition facts label, only if it's easy to do. If you could grab anything that has a nutrition facts label from the fridge or from the pantry. If not, it's not the end of the world. But it may make what we're doing a bit more relevant, because then you can kind of follow along and look at the food label. And I'm going to have some examples of food labels here, so I'll have these here too. So what is a macro? There are three. The three macros are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. All food is made from these three major components of food. They all are kind of a little different, quite different chemically, but we're going to focus on carbohydrates for this presentation. And so what are the macros? Most single ingredient foods fall into one or more of these. For instance, nuts and seeds have all three. Nuts and seeds have carbohydrate in the form of fiber. They have protein, of course, and then all nuts and seeds have fat. So that's just an example of a food, like a single ingredient food, a nut, a seed that contains all three of the macronutrients. Now, most packaged and processed foods fall into more than one. So they will have proteins, they will have fats, and they will have carbohydrates. Usually, and most of it is carbohydrate. Processed food is mostly carbohydrate. And so take a look at your packages and just wondering, what macros do you see inside of them? What carbohydrates jump out at you? What fats jump out at you? And then what proteins jump out at you? I'm going to grab a box of Triscuit. I'm going to grab some Triscuits. And so I do see, of course, I see carbohydrate in the form of wheat. I see some fats in the form of oil. And there is some protein, because believe it or not, there is protein in wheat. Wheat does contain some protein. Oh, look, Sophie has Triscuits too.
Low sodium, us trained by the best.
Yeah. Oh, I've got, they didn't have hint of salt available. So I got these, but I like the hint of salt better. So carbs, our brain loves carbohydrates. It is the brain's preferred food. And if you've had a night where you didn't sleep well, and the next day you are sleep deprived, you may feel like you have sugar cravings, and that is not your fault, and you are not crazy. That is your brain saying, we are damn tired and all we want are M&Ms. I don't want to cut through the fiber of a Triscuit, lady. I want an M&M because I'm a tired brain. And so your brain may, you may have cravings for things like white breads and candies and muffins and cookies and pasta when you are sleep deprived. That is the brain saying, we don't want to wait for the good stuff. We want to hit right away because we are tired. So if you have a day where you're just you're sleep deprived, you're kind of grogging and you're making some bad food decisions, just know that tomorrow is a new day. Get back in the saddle, make better food decisions. It's not your fault. Don't beat yourself up. Okay. A lot of carbohydrates, especially the refined kind that have a lot of added sugars and low fiber flours, like fluffy white flour, can cause significant weight gains and also drive diabetes. So name a high sugar carbohydrate. Anybody?
Donut.
Donut. Yeah. Yeah.
Cakes.
What's that?
Cookies.
Cookies, candies. Yep. Yep. Bagels.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay. I saw this on Instagram today. I just absolutely had to, I love this.
My family is in the kitchen behind us dying. I'll food tomorrow.
I'm working with a lot of people who are vegan, and they're saying, I've always said, there's never been a worse time or a better time to be a vegan, depending on how you define it. So we live in a world today with vegan muffins and candies and cakes and cookies and all kinds of things that just really weren't available to vegans in the past. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, vegans really were relegated to a whole foods, plant-based diet. But today there's so much processed food that comes from the vegan world. And so this is a very, very good picture to remind us that technically Oreos are vegan. Technically Oreos are vegan. There are no animal products at all in Oreos. So,
Then you
so just,
and it's not necessarily to be buying vegan food at the grocery store.
mhm.
That it might even be worse than what you were eating before you were a vegan.
Yeah.
Which I'm not. I'm not a vegan. That would never work for me.
I'm not either. A lot of people think I am, but I find that as I go on with life, I'm eating less animal proteins and more plant proteins, and that's kind of my goal is to find more sources of plant proteins and to eat less animal proteins. But I still eat meat.
It's gonna be give up fish or
Mhm.
seafood. That will be
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
Seafood
do.
and eggs.
Yeah.
Seafood
Yes.
and eggs.
Got
Yeah.
that egg.
I agree with that. Seafood and eggs would be the difficult ones.
Yeah.
I like
The
to
rest
split.
with-
Yeah. The rest I could probably do without. I agree with you. I like to split carbohydrates into two categories, fast and slow. So the fast carbohydrates are the ones that hits your blood sugar, hits your blood, the sugar hits your blood very quickly, hits the brain, causes your blood sugar to go up very quickly and can bring your blood sugar down very, very quickly. And that's kind of the sugar high. These are called the fast carbohydrates because they're very low in fiber and they hit your blood very quickly. This is just a partial list of what I call fast carbohydrates. The thing that these all have in common, low fiber. This is what they all have in common. So compare that to the slow carbohydrates. Everything here has lots of fiber. And you'll notice I said all potatoes. I think that potatoes get a very bad reputation. I think that potatoes are a fine food, high in fiber, high in calcium, high in potassium. I think the problem with potatoes is when we deep fry them and we heavily salt them and then we dip them in sugary ketchup. That's the problem with, or we eat them out of a bag called Lay's. I think that might be the problem with potatoes. But the humble potato, right? When I talk to people, I say, when you eat potatoes, do you eat 1 or 5? And everybody says, no, it's just 1, right? I'm just eating 1 potato, but we tend to not gorge ourselves on whole potatoes, right? The way we do Lay's potato chips. So again, it's in the processing. So unprocessed potatoes are okay. And then all sweet potatoes, red potatoes, white potatoes, brown Idaho, purple, Yukon Gold. Again, that's where Eat the Rainbow comes in. The more variety of color you can eat, the better off you'll be, nutrition, health-wise. Eat the skins, scrub them good, get all that dirt off, and eat the skins. Wonderful fiber in the skins. So-
Wendy, I have a quick question about
Yeah,
skins.
what is it? Yeah.
Do you eat beet skins?
Well, I'll be quite frank. I'm not a beet eater. I'm
Okay.
just not a beet eater. So if I scrubbed them and I were introduced to them, I absolutely would 100%.
My
Yeah,
friend left one last week and I was like, you eat the beet peels? Like, I've never done that. I was like, you can do that? And yeah, we did. And it was fine.
and you're not dead. So, you know, I think,
Yeah.
I would absolutely have just, and it's beets are something I've been wanting to experiment with a bit, roasting them. And because I know people love them, I just have only had them on a Greek salad. And to me, they taste like dirt, but I just probably haven't been properly introduced.
Roasted with coconut oil and rosemary on it, thrown in the oven.
Okay.
Oh, so, yeah. And I do my Brussels sprouts, carrots, and whatever else I got laying around in the same way too.
Okay. All right. One thing I want to point out is that wherever you see the letters OSE, that means sugar. So fructose, sucrose, glucose, galactose, maltose, and I think I'm forgetting lactose. So wherever you see the letters at the end of a word, OSE, that means sugar. And on our food label, our nutrition facts food label, there are 56 ways to call sugar on the food label. 56
Wow.
ways to call sugar on the food label or in the ingredient list. So food manufacturers are very, very adept and tricky and skilled at hiding sugar in our food because they know that we are getting smarter and smarter. And so they are always trying to up their game and stay ahead of us and hiding sugar sources on the food label so we don't see it. The fructose, everybody's heard of high fructose corn syrup, but the natural sugar that occurs in fruit is called fructose. And I never limit fruit when I work with clients. I never tell someone to limit fruit. We just don't tend to gorge ourselves on whole fruit the way we gorge ourselves on potato chips and candies and other things like that. Interestingly, Weight Watchers a couple years ago assigned 0 points to fruit because some interesting studies showed that humans we don't gorge ourselves on fruit. Now, I think they assigned a few points to bananas, but the rest of the fruit was on, eat it, go for it.
They encountered me when I was pregnant.
What was that?
I said they didn't encounter me when I was pregnant.
Oh.
It's literally a big salad bowl of fruit in one sitting.
Yes, yeah, and a lot of that is cravings too. My mother craved oranges when I was in utero.
Well, this is totally off topic, but it's interesting the difference in what the children prefer based upon what I ate when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll always wonder if there was an influence about that.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I've always wondered that too, and why she craved oranges when, the lactose, there you see that OSE, lactose in dairy is a naturally occurring sugar that is found in all dairy. There is a way to remove the lactose. I don't know how they do that, but that's a lactose-free milk. And that is a way for a lot of people to enjoy dairy without the gurgle and the burble and the burping. I've also found as people get older, they are less tolerant of dairy.
Huh.
It just seems to be something that as we age, we become less tolerant of dairy. So this lactose found in dairy. So in about a cup of milk, you'll find 12 grams of sugar, and that is from lactose. That is naturally occurring sugar that's found in all dairy. So we have a new food label, thank God. And in the next slide, I'll show you what the new food label looks like.
I do have a question about that.
Yeah, what is it?
I am lactose intolerant, have been since I was 12, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And while I thank heavens they now have lactose free and the pills that I can take so I can have a more enjoyable experience eating out. But I have noticed that I've always noticed that if I ate something like cheesecake, the reaction was much higher in my gut than if I ate something that just had lactose in it. Is it the combination of the double sugar? Do you know if it might increase the reaction to the lactose?
Well, I'll tell you that cream cheese has more lactose than cheddar cheese, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
So the soft cheeses will have a lot more lactose. So a lot of people eat a hard cheese, like a real sharp cheddar or Parmesan, and it doesn't bother them. But if they eat a soft cheese, it does. And it's just because the different levels of lactose.
I didn't think about the fact that was cream cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it was the added sugar in it too. Nope. Yeah,
it could be that there's just a lot more lactose in cream cheese than there is in other kinds of cheeses. Yeah.
It's my antichrist. It will bring me down a heartbeat.
So our new food label, anything that increases transparency in labeling for consumers is a good thing. And so our new food label shows us added sugars, and I'm going to go to the new food label here in a second. Like I said, 56 ways to call sugar on the food label. I only have one hard and fast rule in my nutrition practices: no sugar sweetened beverages, except for beer, wine, and liquor. And those aren't sugar sweetened beverages, but they are beverages that contain calories, they contain sugar. So let's get sweet tea, these damn Starbucks drinks that have 800 calories,
God.
Coca-Cola, lemonade, Gatorade, Powerade. Let's get it out there. And juice. There is no room in, especially the adult diet, for sugar sweetened beverages. Let's get them out. I'd rather you get your carbohydrates from solid food than from liquids. So tips for reducing added sugar. So we're going to check the nutrition facts label for added sugar. I promise that slide's coming up next. Try homemade salad dressings and pasta sauces instead of stuff that comes in the jar. Choose fruit for dessert. That's how they do it in the Mediterranean. We all want to follow the Mediterranean, but that is not the never-ending pasta bowl at the Olive Garden. That is not the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet has fruit for dessert and minimal added sugar. That is the truth. Choose nuts, seeds, and dried fruit instead of granola or protein bars. Protein bars have a great reputation because we love protein in this country, but they are full of added sugar. Replacing sugar sweetened beverages with sparkling water or water with a splash of juice, and then choose unsweetened yogurt and add your own sugar and taper down over time. Some of the foods with the highest amounts of added sugar in the grocery store are yogurts, and 98% of all yogurts in the yogurt case have added sugar. Okay, here's our new nutrition facts label. So the one on the left is the old one, and the one on the right is the new one. The thing you'll probably notice that is the biggest difference is the calories. So what they did was they made this number nice and big, so you can't miss it. And it's right in your face, so you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So these numbers are meaningless unless you apply them to the serving size. So you have all of these numbers applied to 2/3 of a cup of whatever this food is. I think this food might be ice cream, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't quite figured out if anybody has a guess of what this ice cream is, please share it. The serving size is not much, 2/3 of a cup. That is not much. The volume of your fist is about a cup. So 2/3 of the volume of your fist, okay, is the serving size of this food. It is a scant amount. The calories for 2/3 of a cup are 230. And so here you see how they are now showing us added sugars. The total carbohydrates are 37. That is total. That includes the sugars that exist in the food. And I think some of these sugars might be lactose because the calcium is high at 260 milligrams. So I think this food contains dairy because the calcium is high. And so I think that some of these sugars come from lactose, but then 10 grams, you see that circled in red, 10 grams of added sugar. And so the old label on the left would not show us added sugar, but consumers were clamoring for it. And food manufacturers, they went to our government and they said, we do not want to disclose added sugars to consumers because consumers are getting smarter and wiser to our tricks. And we don't want to show them how much added sugar is in the food. And so the last administration, there was a delay after delay after delay after delay. And then finally, they just could not delay it anymore. And they had to give us our new food label. And here it is. And so this is where I really want you to look for added sugars is when you're shopping for yogurt. You will be surprised to see that a cup of yogurt can contain as much sugar as 5 apples or a can of Coca-Cola. That's just a 2/3 cup of fruit on the bottom Publix yogurt contains the same amount of sugar as 5 apples or a whole can of Coca-Cola. That's a lot of added sugar. I do recommend you buy unsweetened plain yogurt and add your own honey or add your own sugar. I think that you will be more judicious. Your own hand will be more judicious with the sweetener than the factory will be. Any questions about that? So
Would there be 4 grams of fiber in ice cream?
That's a really good question. That's a good point, Sophie. And that's why this label confuses the heck out of me. Because I wouldn't expect ice cream to have fiber.
There's no fiber in yogurt.
Unless this ice cream comes with some fruit Or maybe
Could-
Oh,
some
maybe.
nuts, and maybe
Or nut-
that's where the fiber comes from, is from fruits and nuts, maybe, possibly. Also, the sodium is kind of low for ice cream too, because
Yeah.
ice cream is a really high sodium. I don't really know what this is. I haven't quite figured this one out. Maybe I should pick another label so I can really know what it is. So ask yourself, do you have a factory tongue or do you have a farm tongue? So a factory tongue is a tongue that is really tuned in to very, very, very sweet things. And I had a client once and she came to me, she said, I am a Dr. Pepper addict and I need to get off of this stuff because I have pre-diabetes. And she knew that she had what we called a factory tongue because she'd stopped eating fruit. For her, strawberries were no longer sweet enough. And it's like she intuitively knew. She said, this is a problem. I used to love strawberries and watermelon and all kinds of things, and I don't eat it anymore because it doesn't taste sweet enough for me. And we came to the conclusion that Dr. Pepper had completely hijacked her tongue. So we tapered her off of the Dr. Pepper. And so now she no longer has prediabetes, and she eats fruit and she loves fruit. And she's happy that says she's turned her factory tongue into a farm tongue. And those are her words. She said that to me. I had a factory tongue and now I have a farm tongue.
Wow.
There is sugar in everything. There is sugar in Papa John's pizza dough. So I like to use that example because that's a savory food. So there's a lot of sugar in foods that 10, 20 years ago did not have a lot of added sugar. And they are considered savory foods, but now they're loaded with sugar. So next time you have chain pizza dough, I want you to think about me, and I want you to think about everybody here and this, and I want you to say, you know what? Why is this pizza crust so sweet?
Mm-hmm.
I also had another client who would go to Mazzaro and get the bread ring, and he'd get it in the morning, and by the end of the day, it was gone. And so this bread ring was just kind of calling his name. It's just something that he cannot buy at Mazzaro anymore. He can't have it in the house. It is too much of a pull for him. So he enjoys breads out, but he does not bring them into his house because they're too much of a temptation for him.
Wow.
Yeah. So carbs provide quick energy. Some have fiber, some don't. So there's two kinds of fiber. There's soluble fiber. That's the kind that absorbs water. It forms kind of a gel in your gastrointestinal system. It picks up cholesterol and it sends it out the back door. You poop it out. You poop out the cholesterol. So that's the beautiful thing about high fiber diets, is that the soluble fiber forms a gel in your gastrointestinal tract, picks up the cholesterol, sends it out. That's why these very, very high fiber diets, I can bring somebody's cholesterol down nice and low. And it's all from high fiber plants. There is no magic. And a lot of people don't want to take a statin, and they will come and they'll say, I hate these statins. What can we do? And so we start eating a lot of things like Brussels sprouts and apples and oatmeal and whole grain kind of whole grains like brown rice and farro and quinoa, and we can bring that cholesterol down. The other kind of fiber is insoluble. It does not absorb water. It stays intact from mouth to end, and it bulks the stool and it keeps things moving. Who likes to be constipated? Show of hands. Nobody. There is probably no finer misery in the world than constipation. So there's three things that keep things moving through the GI, and it is movement. So getting out, walking, biking, gardening, working around the house, movement, water or other kinds of fluid, and fiber, both insoluble and soluble. Oatmeal is one of those foods that has both insoluble and soluble fiber. Apples have insoluble and soluble fiber. The skin is insoluble. It doesn't absorb water. It passes through intact, but the inside of the apple will absorb water, form that gel, suck up all that cholesterol, send it out the back door. So both are important. A lot of plants have both soluble and insoluble fibers. Any questions about fiber? How to get more fiber into the diet? I can talk about that too. Fiber keeps you full. Fiber keeps you from grazing on junk at 3 PM. It keeps you from overeating. It makes you feel like you've had a big meal. I can't say enough good things about fiber. And I think in this country, we're way too focused on protein, and we need to focus on fiber. That's where the focus needs to go, is we need to think about how do we get more fiber into the diet and not so much protein. We seem to be a wee bit obsessed with protein in this country, and I want to flip that. Let's see. Oh, that's beautiful. Keeping everything moving with fiber. Keeping everything moving with fiber. I think that this is the end of my slides. Yep. And then I move on to protein, which I don't really have. Oh, it's 7:30. I don't have time to move on to protein, but I can talk about that at the next one, because I'll be making black bean burgers. And that might be a good one to talk about with protein. So any
Perfect.
questions?
This was great.
Good, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I'm going to eat these. I'm going to make that macaroni for my sick kid.
I have a quick sugar question, Wendy.
Yeah.
My family is obsessed with, I mean, you might not have this brand, but it's soda water that has no sugar, but it
Mhm.
has stevia. Stevia? Yeah, stevia leaf.
Yeah.
How does stevia fall into place
Oh,
with sugar
well-
and aspartame, sucrose, and because they're obsessed, and I don't know.
As far as the artificial sugars go, I think that stevia is probably one of the most benign, because it does come from a natural source. And if
Okay.
people ask me about artificial sugars all the time, and I kind of flip the script, and I like to talk more about added sugars and diabetes versus artificial sugars. Again, kind of coming back to the idea, it's not the poison, it's the dose. And so if you're eating or drinking a very, very small amount of these artificial sugars, and if it prevents you from overeating on or over drinking a lot of added sugars and driving diabetes, I'm kind of okay with these artificial sugars if they are replacing something that causes diabetes.
Well, it's replacing soda, like regular
Mhm.
sugary drinks, right? So in that instance, yeah. I mean, I look at it kind of like aspartame, right? Which like 20 years ago, aspartame was the newest, greatest thing, and it was in everything, and it was, supposed to be the newest thing, and then you find out later it's not very good for you. So, and then I just realized that this also has caffeine, this one. So I was just like, oh, well, this is news to me. So I'll have to let my hubby know that.
I actually, the truth is, I'd rather your family drink that than a lot of sugar sweetened beverages and then have to deal with the ravages of diabetes later on down the road. I've seen in the hospital, I used to work in the hospital. I've seen the ravages of diabetes. It's awful. It's a systemic disease, eyesight, kidneys, wounds that don't heal, heart disease. It's bad stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Very, very bad stuff.
Thing within
Thank you.
moderation.
Mhm. So next Tuesday, we're doing black bean sliders. We'll talk about protein.
Can't wait.
And if you want to come back, I'd love to have you back. But like I said, this is provided by the American Heart Association. They've given me a little stipend to do these classes. So I'm really grateful to them.
Awesome. I hope they keep doing it.
I hope
Yeah,
so
I'm
too.
grateful
Yeah.
too.
I love teaching, and I just want to keep getting money and teaching. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. Just get paid to teach nutrition and cooking. That's it.
Cool.
Appreciate that the American Association is allowing this Canadian to take part.
Well, if they knew Sophie, they'd kick you out. I'm sure.
I know.
I'm sure they'd kick you out.
We have a place in St. Pete's, it counts.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I'll see you next week, but I appreciate you coming on. I really do.
It was
you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. don't think Dad and Riley, like, I think Dad went to the office because he didn't want to hear it anymore. Hearing how much of what he consumes during the day he shouldn't be.